i- about good agricultural and collection practices. Okay, so in that topic 2.1, that is a good agricultural practices for medicinal plant. Topic 2 or section 2 of this rule or guideline is good agricultural practices. So we studied a first part, that is the identification or authentication of the cultivated medicinal plants. Now the selection of medicinal plant we studied, then botanical identity, and third one is a specimen. Okay, so these 3 points we studied in last lecture, and then seeds and other propagation materials. Okay, so that part was also studied. Now 2.3 part, that is very important part for the cultivation purpose, that we will discuss in this session. Okay, so today we have two sessions, so we will end these two sessions simultaneously. So by 10:15 we will end our two sessions. Okay, so first, cultivation. Now the cultivation of the medicinal plant require intensive care and the management. Now the cultivation is very important part, as we or the farmers are cultivating the living things, and living things required a proper management, proper things to grow, and therefore it requires intensive care and the management. So the cultivation requires intensive care and the management. The conditions and duration of cultivation required vary depending on the quality of medicinal plant material required. So, depending upon the plant, the condition and duration of the cultivation, it may vary, and that is well known. Okay, so for example, for cultivation of aloe, the different set of conditions are there, and for sugarcane or for turmeric, different conditions and duration are there. Even for mango tree, the cultivation condition are totally different. Even for the tea plant or apple plant, the condition and duration vary. So for the cultivation, condition and duration vary depending on the quality of medicinal plant required and material for the cultivation. So, if no scientific published or documented cultivation data are available, traditional methods of cultivation should be followed where feasible. Otherwise, a method should be developed through a research. Okay, so if a document is not available for the cultivation purpose, then traditional methods use old or traditional or conventional method of the cultivation where feasible. But okay, so the next part in that is site selection. So site selection for the cultivation. Now, first part is a site selection. So, in that, the medicinal plant materials derived from the same species can show significant differences in quality when cultivated at a different sites owing to the influence of soil, climate, and other factors. So, medicinal plant materials derived from the same species, if we cultivate at a different sites, then the significant differences may occur owing to the influence of the soil, climate, and the other factors. So there will be a variation will occur in the final product if we cultivate same species at the different places, and that is due to the influence of soil, climate, and the other factors. Then the risk of contamination as a result of pollution of the soil, air, or water. by hazardous chemical should be avoided. So while selecting the site, just check the risk of contamination. For example, if your land is near MIDC waste area, then there is a chances or possibility for the contamination of your product. So that type of the things should be avoided while selecting the site for the cultivation. So risk of contamination as a result of pollution or air or water, you should be avoided. Okay. And the impact of the past land uses on the cultivation site, including the planting of previous crops and any application of plant protection product, should be evaluated. Now those who are from the uh, farmer family, or those which are having a farming or agricultural background, they know the importance of a rotation of the crops. Okay, so the crops are rotated. That means for 1 year one crop is taken in the farm, and in the next year in that farm the another type of the crop is taken. So the history or the past land uses should be studied, evaluated properly, and then it should be selected for the cultivation. Okay, so that is the first point, site selection for the cultivation. So due to variation, you should select a site which should be which have a low risk of the contamination, and again you must have information about the past land uses. Then the next point, that is a ecological environment and social impact. Okay, now the quality and growth of medicinal plant can also be affected by other plant, other living organism, and by human activities. So the quality and the growth of medicinal plant can also be affected by the other plants. Okay, so we know the meaning of the ecology. So ecology is the effect of environment with the living things. So when the living things and their environment are coming together, that becomes the ecology. And here the growth and the quality of the medicinal plant can also be affected by other plant and other living organism and by human activities. Then the introduction of non-indigenous medicinal plant species. Now non-indigenous means it is not originated or it is not available in that area for previous years. Okay, previous many years. ठीक है, नॉन इंडिजिनस मीन्स, टेक एग्जांपल, now in Pune or in Pune rural area, the crops are different. But if we start cultivating apples here, so that apple tree becomes non-indigenous medicinal plant for this area, because it is not indigenous. Because in Pune rural area, the crop like onion or sugarcane or turmeric or other crops are normally taken. So those are indigenous plants. But if we start cultivating the apple tree or tea or others, it will become non-indigenous tea, non-indigenous plant, and therefore it will have a detrimental impact on the biological and ecological balance of the region. Okay, so that part shall be considered. Okay, and the ecological impact of cultivation activities should be monitored over time where practical. Okay, so that is important to study the effect or impact of the cultivation of non-indigenous plant onto the biological and ecological balance of the region. Then third, the social impact of cultivation on local communities should be examined to ensure that negative impact. on the local livelihood are avoided. Now, the negative impact, the social impact of cultivation on the local communities should be examined, and the negative impact on local livelihoods are avoided. Okay, so again, take example, the social impact means what society thinks, what will be the effect of cultivation of our or non-indigenous medicinal plant into the locality, what will be the impact, that should be studied. For example, now if we start cultivating tobacco in our farms, or if we start cultivating tobacco or opium here, definitely that will be causing a negative impacts on a local livelihoods or the neighbors or our society. So if we start cultivating tobacco here, or if we start cultivating opium plant or any other narcotic plant, then obviously it will have a social impact on that area. Even the political pressure may get there in that area. Okay, so sir, the social impact of the cultivation should be studied. Then, in terms of local income earning opportunities, small scale cultivation is often preferable to a large scale production. In particular, if small scale farmers are organized to market their products jointly. Okay, now we studied here the impact of the cultivation. Now that is a negative impact. But if you start cultivating few things which will raise the income of the local, then that will be beneficial. So the impact, that is social impact, shall be studied before cultivating the plant material. Okay, now in western Maharashtra, we call it as a Paschim Maharashtra. So in Paschim Maharashtra, many sugar factories are there. Okay, so many sugar factories providing opportunities for local community to work and earn something. So many farmers or their daughters or sons, they are working in the sugar factories and earning a profit. Okay, so in terms of local earning opportunities, small scale cultivation is often preferable. Okay, so that is the impact, and we should study the impact. And WHO is also recommending that study the social impact. Okay, now do you have any doubt in these 2 points? If you have, just unmute yourself and ask the question. Point number 2.3.1 and point number 2.3.2. Any doubts? Any query?
No, sir.
Okay. So these are the 2 points. Now the third, that is the climate. Now it is very important factor for good, for agricultural and collection practices, and it have a big impact on a cultivation of the plants. Okay, now we are aware about the thing, that is the climate is not in a human being's hand. They cannot handle that. So it totally depends on the nature. So this year or last year, the rain or the temperature conditions may vary, and those will have influence on the physiological and biological activities of the plants and the others. Okay, so definitely this climatic condition may cause a physical chemical variation in the final product. So the climatic condition, for example, length of a day, rainfall, and field temperature, uh, etc., significantly influence the physical, chemical, and biological qualities of the medicinal plant. So, climatic condition definitely influencing the physical, chemical, and biological qualities of the medicinal plants. Then, the duration of the sunlight. Now, the duration of the sunlight, then average rainfall, then average temperature, including daytime and the nighttime temperature differences, also influence the physiological and biochemical activities of the plant, and due to that, prior knowledge should be considered. Okay, so this is the impact, or this is important. So all things shall be considered, and the farmers are well aware about that. But nowadays technology is improved so much, so many alternatives are available, but still there is a uh, we cannot stand in front of the nature, but again we are trying to fight against that. For example, the sunlight. Now plants require sunlight, but nowadays due to the global warming, uh, it is causing harm to the plants. So what man invented? They invented greenhouses. So under shade we are cultivating the plant material or the plants. So that exposure we started to reduce. Then for rainfall, now days like sprinklers are available. Then we can say tibak, or all types of the uh, advances are there in that irrigation purpose. But again, nature is okay. So that is about the climate. Then the next factor is 2.3.4. Now in this 2.3.4, the soil is the factor for the cultivation. So the soil should contain appropriate amounts of the nutrients, organic matter, and other element to ensure optimal medicinal plant growth and quality. Okay. Optimal Optimal soil condition, including soil type, drainage, moisture retention, fertility, and pH, will be dictated by the selected medicinal plant species and or target medicinal plant. So, optimal soil conditions required, and which are the optimal soil condition? It includes soil type, drainage, moisture retention, fertility, and pH. It will be dictated the selected medicinal plant species and target plant part. So, for example, the optimal soil conditions are required, not excess or not minimum. Okay. So, rainfall is required, but if a maximum or heavy rainfall is there, then that is not suitable for the plant growth. So optimal soil conditions are required. Then the next, that is the use of fertilizer is often indispensable in order The use of fertilizer is often indispensable in order to obtain large yields of medicinal plant. However, necessary to ensure that correct type and quantities. So again, the fertilizers are required, but appropriate selection of the fertilizer is important. Okay, so that the selection is based upon the experience of the farmer, or how he is taking the advice from the expert. So that is required, and guidelines are suggesting that ensure the correct types and the correct quantities of the fertilizers for the agricultural purpose. Then the human excreta must not be used as a fertilizer owing to the potential presence of the very dangerous and infectious microorganism or the parasites. Okay. Now, animal manure should be thoroughly composted to meet safe sanitary standards of acceptable microbial limits and destroyed by the germination capacity of the weeds. So, animal manure allow it to compost and to meet all safe sanitary standards of acceptable microbial limits. Okay. Example, animal manure, we call it as a shenkhat, and it consists of a microbial load. Okay, it consists of the microbes which are important for the cultivation of the plant material. So allow it to compost. So normally farmers are taking 1 year for, or allowing 1 year duration for the composting. So uh, that is required to grow microbial limits. Then any application of the animal manure should be documented. Okay. Then chemical fertilizers that have been approved by the countries of cultivation and consumption should be used. So if we are in India, the chemical fertilizers that are approved by the respective authorities shall be taken or shall be used. Then all fertilizing agents should be applied sparingly and in accordance with the needs of the particular medicinal plant species and supporting capacity of the soil. Fertilizer should be applied in such a manner as to minimize the leaching. Okay, so that is required. Then the growers should implement practices that contribute to soil conservation and minimum erosion. Okay, so these practices shall be advised by the, actually it is advised by the WHO. Okay, so these are required. Okay, we have received a warning for last 10 minutes. So if your meeting ends, again rejoin with the same ID. We are going to continue this session till 10:15. Okay, so today we have two lectures, so we will continue at the same time. Okay, so if the session ends, again rejoin with the same ID. Then next point, that is the irrigation and drainage. Now irrigation department, irrigation and drainage, it should be controlled and carried out in accordance with the needs of the individual medicinal plant species during its various stages of the growth. So irrigation and drainage should be controlled and carried out in accordance with the needs of individual medicinal plant. Okay. So according to the needs of the medicinal plant, the irrigation and drainage should be controlled. Okay, so consider example of aloe. So aloe required minimum rainfall. Okay, it does not require heavy rainfall. So that is required for the good aloe growth. But if it is sugarcane, then it required heavy rainfall or proper irrigation. So that system is required. For example, for aloe, the well drained soil is required. So water should not retain near the aloe. Okay, so in that soil, the soil which is having a proper drainage capacity shall be used for the cultivation of the aloe. Okay, so irrigation and drainage should be controlled and carried out in accordance with the needs of individual medicinal plant species during its various stages of the growth. Then water use for the irrigation purposes should comply with local, regional, or national quality standard. So water now it is according to the national standards. Care should be exercised to ensure that plants under cultivation neither over nor under watered. So the plants neither over nor under watered. So proper optimum water shall be provided to the crops or the plants. Then, in the choice of irrigation, as a general rule, the health impact of the different types of the irrigation of surface, subsurface, or overhead irrigation, particularly on the risk of increased vector-borne disease transmission, must be taken into account. So, all these things are required in the irrigation and drainage department. Okay. So, any doubt till now? काय डाऊट आहे का कुणाला?
Hi, sir.
Okay. Now the next part, that is a 2.3.6, that is a plant maintenance and the protection. Okay. So this part we will start with the next session. So after 5 minutes our meeting ends. So this topic we will begin in the next session. Before that, just we will review what we have studied till now. So today we discuss in this session, that is a cultivation. So why cultivation require intensive care and management, that we studied, because it is a growing, or we are cultivating a particular living things. Okay, take example of the human kid. It requires very intensive care because it is a living being, it is a human being. So similarly, plants are also living things, and they required proper care for their growth. Okay, so because of that, the intensive care and management required for the cultivation. Then in that, how to select a site, actually these are not rule, these are the guidelines. So in case of the site, your site should be with low risk of the contamination, or the proper past land uses should be evaluated. So the history of the land shall be studied while taking the new indigenous plant. Okay, then the ecological and the social impact. So this factor we studied. The ecological environment, it is important because it may have a impact on a biological or ecological balance of that area. So ecology, that means if the crop is different, then many species of the insect, rodents may not get survive. So they have impact on their biological and ecological balance. Okay, so that is about the ecological environment. Then the social impact, both positive and negative impact shall be studied, evaluated properly, and then take the proper care. Then second, climatic condition, for example, length of the day, rainfall, and field temperature. Okay, so the climatic condition also shall be considered. And then next is a soil. So optimum soil condition shall be provided. Okay, and finally irrigation and the drainage. So these points we have covered in this session. So now we will start a new session after 5 minutes of the break. So again, now exact timing 9:50. So we will join at a 9:55. Okay.